This segment is about food waste. While the world wastes about 1.4 billion tons of food every year, the United States discards more food than any other country in the world. 80 to 108 billion pounds every single year. You want to break that down personally? That means every person, every day, throws away a pound of food. Don't believe me? Go through your fridge. How much of the stuff in your fridge did you throw away this week? What about the stuff you didn't finish eating? It was perfectly fine, but you threw it away because you were full and you don't do leftovers. What about fruit, vegetables? Those are notorious. Or if you're like my wife, you get a little bit concerned about dates, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Let me be blunt with you. The American food manufacturers are misleading you. Bluntly, where does our food waste come from? And you're wondering how this is due with transportation. Hold on, I'm gonna get there. It's gonna freak you out. Don't lose me, hold on. Where does our food waste come from? And I'm just talking about the United States for a minute. 43% from home. 43, that's the highest. The next one's gonna blow your mind. 40% restaurants, grocery stores, and food service companies. I work for a grocery store and the produce department. I can't tell you how many hundreds of pounds of vegetables and fruit we throw away every single day. Let's not talk about the on-site bakery department or anything like that. It'll make you nuts. 16% from the farm. And finally, 2% from manufacturers of either producing too much or, stuff that's imperfect that gets cast aside. Why does that matter? Again, I want to get right to the point. According to the World Wildlife Federation, the production of wasted food in the United States is the equivalent to the greenhouse emissions of 37 million cars. I said 37 million cars. Oh, and did I mention that the amount of food we throw away is roughly 30 to 40% of the United States food supply? I want all this to sink in. What you don't realize is that because these are organic compounds being thrown away in a landfill, which, by the way, food is the number one thing we throw away in a landfill. 40% of everything in a landfill is rotting food. Generates, guess what? Methane gas. And guess what? A greenhouse gas. And guess what? Did I say climate change? Now, multiply that across the world. What do you got? If we're going to get serious about climate change, cars are part of the problem, but and how do I even explain this? I am not an over-the-top liberal. I drive a gasoline-powered car, and I love my SUV. So we're clear. Although I would consider an electric, but that's a different story for a different time. But I'm reading the statistics. I'm looking at the reality of where we're going, and it's all coming together. This is real, people. And I know it's hard. It's difficult to change behaviors. It's difficult to change habits. It's difficult to acknowledge and, to dismiss it as, oh, you're being overreactive. Well, think about this. Just vehicles for a minute. We put 40 billion tons of CO2 in our atmosphere every single year. How do you think you're going to put that much of anything anywhere and things not change? This is what's going on. Now, before we even talk about the economic waste and the fact that even as we're throwing all this food away, we've got people in the world, in our country, in our cities and towns, probably within the sound of my voice, that are starving and food insecure. There are a growing number of services that are looking to match this food that's still good, but past, quote unquote, its date, with people who are hungry and would gladly have it. Now, let me talk about it. The number one reason folks in homes throw food away is food spoilage, whether real or perceived. Now, more than 80% of Americans discard perfectly good consumable food simply because they misunderstand expiration date labels. Labels like sell by, use by, expires on, best before, or best by are confusing to people. And in an effort not to risk the potential of a foodborne illness, they toss it in the garbage. This is my wife. Sell by, used by, particularly best before or best by. Those two, best before or best by, does not mean the food is bad. It may not be at its 100% taste, but it's still consumable, it's still edible, and it will still do the job and not make you sick. Now, expires on, that's different. You know, if you've got an expiration date, it's an expiration date. But use by, sell by, those are ways for folks, for the American food industry, for you to discard food and buy more. Let's just be blunt here. But many people, including the grocery store I work for, where you got an expiration date on that packaged produce, we have to discard it if it's within 2 days of that date. We cannot sell it. When I was at the fulfillment center for their online service, it was 5 days. If it got within 5 days of that date, particularly for dairy products, 5 days. Little things like, for example, did you know that milk is good for at least 7 days past its expiration date?
And that should just be a smell for people, right?
Should be. I mean, and in some cases,
because sometimes I've noticed milks. Yeah, sometimes I've noticed milks 2 weeks later still smell fine. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a few days right after the date. You can smell it. It's nasty.
Mm-hmm. But all I'm saying is, when it comes to leftover food, when it comes to meeting, reducing our footprint and helping our brothers and sisters on this planet who are food insecure, there are apps, probably one in your town, where you can either help somebody get food or find where food is available that's perfectly good but about to be pitched. And in fact, somebody showed me one of those active in Des Moines, showed me today with a number of participating retail companies that participate in making that available. It takes a change of mind, people.
That's what we talk about climate change. There's going to be, it's so many things at once. It's heat pumps in homes. That's a big push we're going for. It's, transportation, and not only vehicles, but it's airplanes and it's ships.
Food waste.
Yeah, there's so much.
I part you with this number. 37 million cars.
Being more efficient with how we do things. And some people are really going to not like it because it's going to be a change of lifestyle, but we're wasting. We're wasting so much, and not only in food, but in gas and
that 37 million, roughly 12% of the private owned passenger car fleet in the United States.
All is not well with the Colorado River.